I am happy to be with you here this Sunday morning. I wanted to join so I can share a bit of a story with you. I've been thinking about how to continue my lives and what would be useful for folks, so what would be enjoyable for me, and so I'm here again for a little bit of story time. And I don't know if you know this song, but it's a song that I woke up with in my mind this morning, and the topic for today's chat is starting all over again. So I'm not a great singer, but I like the song. So I'm starting all over again. It's gonna be rough, so rough, but we're gonna make it. Starting all over again is gonna be tough on us, but we're gonna face it. And so that song, and if you're coming on a live, just like the live, share it, comment. It really makes it a little bit more fun if you do. So, I'm grateful for you taking time out this Sunday morning to join me. And this conversation, this chat, this story is gonna be for, folks who maybe just want to know a little bit more about life on this little volcanic island, or maybe a little bit more about me. I want to get to know you a little bit more as well. And if you have gone through changes in life, many different changes, maybe even trauma and disasters, maybe if you've had to start over again, you've had to go through that messy middle of life, um, you know, this, I think, could be useful, maybe a little bit motivational. I don't know what it's going to be, but I thought I'm feeling more and more that I should share more of my stories. And I'm doing those things that really align to my heart, that align to joy and ease and things like this. So here we go. I hope you can hear me well. So again, if you are joining the live, please like it up, engage. It makes it more fun. And I really want to be able to encourage you to share your story, document your story, do lots of it. And I'm going to start by sharing pieces of my story that haven't been documented as yet. I mean, in my life, returning back home, doing some of the work I do, having been a volcano refugee, I've had stories written about me for TV and across the world. I've had posts and stories written for like science magazines like Hakai Magazine and Scientific American and Nat Geo. I've been featured in different places with different people, a lot to do with the volcano story. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper than the volcano story and share more about my personal story. Um, you know, and I just want you to take from it whatever you think is going to be useful. So yeah, I'm living on a volcano. I live on a volcano island called Montserrat. It's a UK overseas territory, and it's here in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, tiny dot of an island, only 3,500 people or so. Uh, on one side, I can see, if you know the Caribbean much, one side we can see Guadeloupe. Uh, we can also see um, Antigua and Barbuda. Well, Antigua on another side, and we can see Nevis and St. Kitts. So we're around that area as well. Can't really see St. Kitts, but you can see Nevis. Behind Nevis is St. Kitts. So this is where we're located. And so yeah, my life has been many changes, many moments of feeling like I have been starting over, and I want to share them with you. The first big change for me, I think that I can remember, that I want to share with you today, because there's going to be many different stories to tell. But I'm going to start with the volcano, the hurricane of 1989, Hurricane Hugo. I was 9 years old, and a Category 5 hurricane hit Montserrat. And so all these beautiful surroundings that we have around us, beautiful trees, beautiful environment. My parents had, renovated the home. We moved from a traditional small wooden home into a concrete home with galvanized roof, but it was still a house where I had my own little room, and we had indoor facilities, and my parents had really invested a lot to create that home for us. And this was a story typical of many monstrations at the time. But in 89, this Category 5 storm hit the island, and it annihilated the island. And I mean, totally destroyed everything. I knew then what Category 5 storm could do, right? The structure of properties, to infrastructure, to nature in general. And so I went to sleep. I ended one day on a beautiful island like normal, and woke up the next day traumatized and with nothing standing. Our house roof had gone, the galvanized on the roof had gone, but the house was structurally sound. But throughout the night of the storm, my mom and my grand basically sat with me in a little bit of a walk-in closet, and closed closet. And in there, I laid on their laps, in water that was rising to their knees. They were praying, like, no, like, you won't believe, praying to God, praying that we'll be okay. Trying to stay calm, trying to keep me calm, but it was a scary time. And one of the scariest things I ever remembered at that point was the hurricane, the sounds of the winds. It was like, it's like souls screaming. It was like every wrong that could have happened in the world was being was just screaming at us. It was howling outside. People's houses lifted up with them. There were deaths. There was no electricity for 3 months. We had to be fed by battleship and emergency aid. And so that was very traumatic for a 9-year-old child. And it wasn't a time where you had like mental health support or trauma support or anything like this. You really had to just get on with life. And my parents did their very best to try and make life feel normal for me. And then I went on to, we kept going. My mom and my grand were very resilient ladies, and they try to keep life as normal for me as possible. But then a few more years later, we got our volcano, which we knew to be dormant, the Soufriere Hills volcano. One day, we were here just normal in our yards, and we heard this woo woo sound, like sounded like almost there was a helicopter circling the island, and it was like, why is this helicopter circling the island for the whole day? And gradually, the news started to spread across the island that back then we didn't really have mobile phones and all these things, so it was really like a chain of people's experiences, people from the south of the island explaining that the volcano in the south seems to have woken up, and there were these vents that had opened, and so they were just spewing steam out of the earth, like geysers, and like one big geyser. And that was scary. Like, what is happening here? But no way did we believe that what would happen later was going to happen. It was just wild how the the environment changed, the landscape around the volcano changed, how a mountain started to push itself out of the ground, how the island was building and forming a new mountain right in front of us. The island was growing right in front of us, and that would have been destructive. So by 1990, that started at 1995, and by 1997, when I was 17 years old, there was this there were massive eruptions. You can time them. You can time them almost like every 3 hours. There were tectonic earthquakes. You could feel the earth vibrating from the mountain straight into the home, and then at home shaking. There was rocks coming out of the sky. Daytime, like a bright day like this, you put your hand in front of your face, you couldn't see anything. So it was really, really traumatic. My dad nearly died in one of these eruptions in 1997, one of the strongest eruptions to have hit us. And I saw a friend of mine go to rescue his mom with the rescue team, but he never got her alive. And we saw the helicopters coming in with dead bodies and body bags, and the stench of death and burning everything, like just smoke covered the whole island for days. Um, and at this point, we realized things were serious. I saw the Plymouth, our town, uh, just erupted. It erupted because, in one of the hot eruption, pyroclastic flows, which is basically hot ash, um, rocks, and gas came down from the mountain right into the town. And even though they had evacuated the town, there was still gas in some of the big gas containers that were there for Texaco and so on. And so when one of these eruptions came down, just the heat penetration alone caused this area to explode. And it was that point when I was sat in my yard in my home that, oh, hi, Michelle. I'm so happy you joined for this story. I'm just talking a little bit about, starting over again. And I'm starting with, the traumatic situations that happened when I experienced at 9 years old a Category 5 hurricane. And then later on, by 17, I was experiencing the most traumatic volcanic eruptions where my dad nearly died. And I also love pets. As you know, I have like 6 dogs right now. Keeping 4 puppies because I can't find another home for them, and I just want them to be happy and healthy and all the things, and we love them. But I had 2 cats at the time too, and I just had to abandon my cats, and it was the most horrific thing. Actually, as I think back to the experience of the volcano, yes, it was scary that my dad nearly died. Yes, it was scary that we had to evacuate our homes, that we've lost access to half of our island and all these things, but I really, really missed my animals, and I'm so sad that I had to give them up. I think what my parents did was there was an animal rescue team that came into the island that took the pets, and I don't know if they made it, but they had to be evacuated off the island themselves and taken to Miami or something like that. And I don't know if they ever found new homes, but that for me as a kid was really, really traumatic. And but this goes on. So by 1997, the eruptions were just kicking off terribly. Schools were stalled, stopped, and I was at that point where I was about to finish my secondary school education. So I was evacuated to the UK, and I became a refugee, a volcano refugee. So I and my mom came with us for the initial settling in, and we were taken in by the Red Cross in Leicester, England, and then in being taken in by the Red Cross, we were staying in a hostel, and we had food from, like, when the supermarkets are getting rid of food at the end of the day, or if foods were reaching at the end of the expiry dates, then the food came into the hostel and we were able to enjoy that food. Then shortly after, my parents were able to secure a home for us through the Housing Association of the United Kingdom in Leicester, and it was nowhere the sort of house and space that we had become accustomed to. So there was lots of things changing for me and for us, but we plodded on through, and we got our little house, furnished. That became home for myself and my grandma. My mom, because she already had a job as a clerical officer within the government, she came back to Montserrat to ride out the disaster and crisis of the volcano. And my grandma stayed with me in Leicester. And so me and Granny basically stayed at home. I then was able to get into school. So I got into a college in Leicester, and which is the middle of England, a very sort of city that has a sort of, there's a lot of Indian communities in Leicester. There's a sort of industry around textiles in Leicester. But it wasn't a place that I felt. It was a bit depressed city. I didn't feel like it was a very exciting city, and I was not happy there. I cried. I cried for years. I cried for, probably 3 years straight. Just wanting to come back home, not wanting to stay there. Certainly for the first 2 of college. So I went into college in Leicester, and I don't remember ever having friends in college. I think that a few times when I tried to make friends and I tried to speak to people, people would say to me that, oh, she speaks too fast, they don't understand. And I didn't really understand the accents either. So we didn't really speak. And it wasn't a very friendly place. I also don't think I got particularly good, like, like you get counseling around what subject to take for your studies. And I don't think that was particularly brilliant either. So, but I suppose the school was an okay school. Um, but I remember going to that school, I wanted to do art, wanting to do new things because I felt, well, this is a new opportunity. I'm in a new country. Well, how can I make this a better deal, right? But the advisors at my school in Leicester basically said, you'd be doing these other subjects at school, which were sciences and like business and things that I thought was a bit boring, but that's just the system and opportunities I had in Montserrat. So I was doing them. And in Leicester, they said, well, you should just keep doing them. So I kept doing them. And I remember just crying so much in Leicester because even when I got into school there, like we were going through a winter, my first winter, and I remember there was like cold rain falling and snow falling, and I stayed outside the school thinking that somebody's parents would have offered me a ride home. I wasn't more than like a 5-minute drive or 10-minute drive away from the school, but everybody picked up their kids and nobody took me up. And I just found that to be so sad and depressing because in Montserrat, like my parents or other parents would have picked me up or picked up somebody else that looked like they needed a ride and just taken them home. And especially because the conditions were so rough, like they were, I just come from this tropical island, like it was raining, sleeting. I was already sick with cold. I couldn't shake. And I had to walk home in the freezing rain that day. And I just remember crying and telling my mom, I really, really want to come home. And she was like, you can't come home because we're going through a volcanic crisis here and we're moving all the time and it's just wild. And my granny was just trying her very best to make me happy and comfortable. And she had retired from her job as a domestic maid. She had been a domestic maid in the island. My granny came out of like plantations. She was working in plantations before then, um, picking cotton and lime. But she really held firm with me in Leicester to make life as normal for me as possible. For that, I will be forever grateful to my granny who just passed away 2 years ago, and that was the most traumatic thing ever for me. One of them, anyway, because I loved her so dearly. We had such a close relationship. Um, and so basically, Leicester happened. I finished school in college and I went to university. And so I got into a Premier League university in Leicester. This was Nottingham University and one of the top 5 universities in the country. And I was advised to do management studies. So I I actually wanted to do African studies. I wanted to do African studies and go travel bits of Africa and learn more of my ancestry and do things that I love. I really enjoyed history as a subject growing up in school. And so, but I didn't do that because I was advised, yeah, don't do that. Like, nobody does that. It's going to be too difficult to get jobs. You should just do management, business, keep it broad, they said. So I went to this university, Nottingham University, and I remember getting into university, and it was my first experience with like racism and just stupidity. And I got into my halls of residence. I remember this white guy coming up to me in school, and he said, in my my floor and said, oh, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Montserrat, trying to be pleasant and friendly. And he's like, oh, where is that? Like, oh, where do you guys live? Do you live in trees? And I just thought, it's just like, what the hell? I didn't think he was racist at the time. I just thought it was stupid. Like, what a stupid question to ask me. Like, what are you talking about? Dear God help us. And so that wasn't friendly, and that was like my first day in school, like in university halls of residence. But I had a really good friend, like another white girl, and she was in my halls, and she became my good friend, like best friend in school. Um and we in the first week went to sign up to all the subject, like all the extracurricular activities, I forget what you call them, that you can do at university. And I was really into track and field, but I said, there's no way I'm going to do track and field in England. This is just, um, Like how people think Texas people will wear noses. I know, right? I could imagine. I could imagine. It's wild sometimes, but what can you say? Um, I don't even know what to expect in Texas, so I don't know. I'd imagine there's some good food. Um, but then if I wanted some good cowboy boots, which I love boots, I would probably get them there as well. But yeah, basically no. I'm going to this after Michelle. I'm going to this thing to register my subjects, like activities that I want to do. And I get to the African and Caribbean Society because I feel like a connectivity. Like these are people that I would relate to culturally. I already had a stinking stupid day, first day at school. So my white girlfriend came with me to sign up. We're looking at all the subjects. I didn't want to do sports because I thought it was too cold. There's no way that I'm going to do sports, um, in the fall. I just wasn't prepared for that mentally. And so I went to African Caribbean Society, and then one of the girls that was registering people said, "Oh, I don't think you speak to Black people. Like, why are you here?" And I was like, "What? What kind of stupidness is this?" So she embarrasses me, embarrasses my white friend that's with me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I'm in halls of residence? Like, that's because I was in halls of residence because it was the only thing I knew. Like, it's the only thing I was guided to do. I didn't know anything about private accommodation outside of school. I was going for a whole of university experience, and that was the only option that was presented to me, and that's the one that we took. And I didn't even know that there was like Caribbean food outside of my campus, like in a little area outside of my campus. It was years after I left school and went back to Nottingham that I realized like they used to have live reggae shows and all these things. Like I was on such a campus ground that I had no idea these things were going on outside. But there were Black people, my own people, being mean to me, which I felt really taken aback and very sad. And so university was another adjustment and sad. And it was like I was starting all over again to be in a new country, to be going through this new education system, and to be the only Black person in halls of about 700 students. Um, that was also a wild experience for me. But anyway, I made a couple good friends. So there was my white girlfriend in school. We did different subjects though, but I remember her being really lovely and being with me throughout. And I also made another couple good friends, guys, and they were in the older years. One of them, um, who's passed away, like he ended up committing suicide. Um, but he was like a really, really good friend. We did so many things together. He was doing law. I was doing like management. And so in my management accounting bit, he was used to come in and he used to come in and just check out my books and get really gravitated towards that. So when we graduated, he actually went to be a management accountant and got really brilliant jobs, really bright, really, really had such a promising future. But things didn't work out for him in a relationship, and we lost him. But my other friend Babs, who was also graduating the year, like in my second year. I had 4 years of university and he was graduating in my second year, but we became friends. He was African British and he was brilliant and like cool, and he was such an awesome human being. Like I loved Babs. I grew to love Babs so much. We didn't have a romantic relationship, but we had a friendship that taught me about love. And so I graduated from university, and this was a moment when I realized too what privilege was all about, right? So I left university and I was pretty much as smart as everybody else, and you do sometimes have a sort of a hang up where we think maybe the color of our skin or access to resources and so on means that you might not be as smart as. Um, but I remember thinking, yeah, no, I'm in one of the best universities and pretty smart as everybody else. But then I saw privilege and I saw that there were many people in my course that had either auntie, uncle, or godfather that was in a Fortune 500 company. So to get internships in some of these like KPMG and, Ernst and Young and all these organizations that most people from my course were going into was near impossible for me. I already got discouraged just for the fact that I didn't have that in. So I was trying to look into that, and I thought, no, I don't think I'm going to go in that direction because the odds were already like piled high. Although I must say that I never really, at that point in my life, I never really felt like there was anything preventing me from achieving things, right? Um, I remember having an ex-boyfriend, like my first boyfriend, who I had known from Montserrat, and he was always saying things like, the odds were against us type of thing. I never understood it, I never related to it. But I didn't feel like I was going to fight that battle. So I left university and I went to do this course. um no, I got a job as a conveyancer. So I was representing people in their property contracts and purchases, sales, remortgages, leasehold property, freehold properties, things like that. And I was trained up with this organization to be official conveyancer. And that's what I did in Leicester after I left university, because I wanted to really get into retail and be a manager in a retail organization, but I didn't really time it well. So I ended up doing conveyancing as my first job, and it paid well. And I had a good team of people to work with. Some of my clients ended up having. I ended up having clients that had properties over £1 million. I learned a lot of really good skills. So not only the sort of deep law in regards to property and contracts, your covenants for your laws and trying to make and negotiate the best deals for clients, but I also learned about solving problems, right? That you had to be super resourceful sometimes and communicating and serving clients to the best of my ability. So I really love that. And I got into tech because we had to do data management systems. And I remember one of my first sort of opportunities for supervising people was in that data management system. So I would supervise people and train them in using our data management systems. And I loved it, but I felt like there was something missing. I used to come in with these big afros, my flip-flops, because it was a remote conveyancing office. I didn't really have to see my clients day to day. And so I always felt this need to just be free. I wanted to be free and be myself. And I didn't feel like that was being myself. I felt like I was conforming to something that didn't really feel like I was living my best life properly, because I wanted to do art. I was creative, um, you know, a love of creativity. The direction of going in that way was appealing to me, but I didn't know how to connect to it. And in the end, I gave up the job in conveyancing and decided I wanted to go do um, fashion. And I had remembered that I had seen jobs that were going around like for style advisors and things, and I was like, what a cool thing to do, to be a style advisor in a organization. That was like a really big thing back in the early 2000s. And so I don't know if people still have that. I think maybe some of the big stores might have style advisor services. And so could you believe I left my law job to go be a style advisor? But to work in retail. I didn't know what that retail job would be, but probably I was looking first for management jobs, because that's kind of what I did my degree in and got into a good school. And, I had experience because I was working in a law firm and I had to supervise people and I had made my way up to conveyancer. And so, gave it up. God bless my parents. My mom said, Vita, what are you going to do? I said, well, I want to do this other thing, retail. I think it's going to make me happier. It's more aligned to who I am. And she said, okay, you have our support. And that's the thing about my parents. My mom and my grand have always been willing to let me try new things. They never sort of imposed any expectation as to who or what I would be, um, despite the massive sacrifices and investments they have made in my education, which now sometimes I think, oh God, I shouldn't have made some of those reckless moves. They've probably been so worried about their investments in me. But my happiness mattered so much more. And I really appreciate and am so grateful to them for that. And so I started all over again. Now, this time, things are getting serious. I'm already in my early 20s. and I'm giving up a job of security where, I could have very well stayed, made decent money, been able to afford property in the UK, um, had good teams, had a supportive manager. I remember one time, even at that job, I had such a good little friend there. I forgot my lunch at home, and she had a moped, and she drove all the way home, like a 30-minute drive to my mom grand's house to get my lunch and come back. Like, she was adorable. Such a good friend, and I lost touch with her now, but that's when I knew she was a super friend. And anyway, I left it, and I went to go work um in in fashion, in retail, but I had no experience in retail. And I was confident. I was confident that I was going to get a job. So I did my CV. It was a good CV. And I went to London, booked to London. I walked all the main streets that I liked, Oxford Street. I went to King's Road. I went to Covent Garden. And I just started to walk all the high street areas and give my CV to the managers, ask for the managers or the supervisors and give my CV, look for when they had jobs, even when they didn't have jobs into advertising. And despite doing all of that, not one organization, not one shop called me back. I was so like, why? Couldn't believe it. Like, tried so hard, really pounded the pavement, did my best CV, went to London, made my investment to go down several times to do these walks around and give my CVs. Nothing. Not a thing. So I didn't really apply in Leicester because I didn't want to be in Leicester. Uh, I hope this is not too boring. Uh, but I hope, you will stay with me for this story, because I think in it, it might actually speak to somebody else, and for sure you'll get to know me a little bit better. And I'm hoping that you will continue to comment and share as well as we go through, because I want us it's more fun when you do it. Anyway, so I start over again. I'm now trying to get a job in retail. Nobody wants me. Can't understand why. Trying my best, trying my hardest. Didn't want to stay in Leicester. It's this depressed city. I didn't have a good experience there, probably because my start there was atrocious. I didn't have friends in college. It was cold. It was miserable. It wasn't a very exciting thing to do for a young person in this new sort of city. So, and country. So I tried the city next to me in Nottingham. I don't know, for those of you who know England very well, but it's the middle of England too. But it's a slightly bigger city, and it was booming. It was developing at the time, and there was more shops, more interesting things. And that's where I had gone to university, and also they had art schools and design schools and things like this. So I felt, this is kind of an option as well. So I tried to give up my CV there too. Nobody responded. I would get the train over, drop off my CV, speak to managers. Are you looking for job? Are you looking for people to work in your store? I'm looking for supervisor jobs or whatever. I just wanted any job. I don't think in my CV I requested any supervisor or managerial job because I didn't feel like I had that experience in retail. So I just wanted any job. I don't know if they felt like I was overqualified or my CV just was so boring. I don't know, but I never got those jobs. And one day, as I was really thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? Because I've given up my secure job, getting paid good money, living at home with my grandma, now wanting to get into another field. Pretty sure I can do all the things that's required, but I'm not getting a chance. I'm not getting a foot in the door. And so in Nottingham, there was a store called Topshop. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it was kind of a fast fashion store, and it was becoming more and more trendy. I actually heard about Style Advisors because of that store. They even had like a boutique section that was showing in London Fashion Week, and it was kind of a trend-setting store at the time. And they were looking for people, retail assistants, and um they were looking for retail assistants, and sorry, somebody was just shouting at me across the road, telling me something, got distracted. But they were looking for retail assistants, and basically I didn't take my CV this time. I thought that CV is crap. That CV ain't gonna get me anywhere. Clearly wasn't working. And I went over to the recruitment night, and they had different activities set up. It was very fun. And I had fun, and I just was myself. And the next day they called me and said, "You got a job." And I was so excited. And it was a retail assistant job, so very entry position, shop floor job. And I was so excited because I just wanted to get a foot in the door, and I wanted to work for this organization. I wanted to work for this company. It was a pretty cool company. I knew that. And the pay wasn't brilliant. In fact, I was taking a pay cut, maybe about 70%. I was getting paid a lot more money working in law. And it was even more comfy because I was living at home. And anyway, I I I got the job. I went to the job, and I was so happy in it. I made zero money because I had to pay for my train to Nottingham from Leicester, and all the little money that I had was just going in train fare. So I really had nothing. I had nothing at the end of the day, but I was enjoying my work. I had a good supervisor. The people around me were fun, and I just loved it. And then a job came that was being advertised as a style advisor. Can you believe? Like now there's a style advisor position in this organization. I said to my supervisor, I would really love the style advisor position, but I'd love to apply, but I don't think I'll get it because I have no experience in art. I have no experience in fashion. And she said, you should still apply. I think you've got a really good attitude and you're super good at service and things like this. So you should still apply. I applied and I got the job. Within 3 months, I was also made the style advisor supervisor, and I was on secondment back to Leicester uh, to help supervise and fill in there as well. So I was getting experience within the organization, and I was in the area I wanted. A job came available in London. Now this is a real deal. I'm now in an opportunity to be um, working in London. So I was then transferred down to London in the style advisor service. So I was assistant manager in the style advisor service in Oxford Street, which is a flagship store, and it was super exciting, super cool. Topshop was amazing at hiring really interesting people. So all the people I worked with were from all over the world, and they had the most exciting life stories. And our pay was not great, but we built such great friendships, and everybody was really working their best in their teams and working together. The psychometric testing for that job was pretty intense. Um, in fact, my friend Babs, who I mentioned earlier, I thought I was going to fail that math test. Oh my God. Math was not my strongest point, but my friend would call me from London because he was living in London at the time and basically coached me on the math test preparation. I aced the test because of Babs. And that's what I'm telling you about love, friend. And sometimes it just takes one person, one good friend that will get you through in life and that cares enough. That's to be bothered by. My friend Nori makes art here on, and that follows my newsletter, subscribes to my newsletter, and I, in community on Substack. She would say oftentimes, about being bothered to get to know people, being bothered to care, even. And so I totally agree with this. And because of Babs, I got this job too in as the assistant manager for the Style Advisor service in Oxford Street, London. And anyway, long story short, I gave up the job in the end because another job came available and it was more money. But Topshop Style Advisor service was incredible. I still have great friends there now, who are stylists for magazines and things like this, like Elle magazine, like freelance stylists. So I had a really exciting upcoming career, but I I was thinking of getting into styling for magazines and things as well, but I didn't. That's a whole other story. I'll stick to this one that I want to share, which is about starting all over again and that messy middle. and being vulnerable enough to learn about what's working, what's not, and really focusing on what's aligned and the people in our lives. So, so yeah, I gave her the job, went to work for this other brand who was also in London, Oxford Street. I was then the manager, like merchandising manager for this store that I didn't really align with their brand at all, but I took the money because it was good money and I was in London and it was expensive to be there and I thought it was a career progression. But like the brand was all about fashion for wives and girlfriends, like wannabe wives and girlfriends. Like, so there's a huge football culture and it was very fickle, very fickle. And it wasn't me, let's just say. I felt it was fickle. I felt it wasn't me. God, I don't want to judge anybody, but it wasn't really my style, but I took it for a while. And it was horrendous. My manager was awful, awful. I was so stressed out. I felt I was being set up to fail. Like I was being sent all over the country and Europe even to set up displays. Sometimes half the equipment wasn't there, half the tools weren't there. Um, it did, sometimes I had to be in Germany for one day and then in the office the next afternoon, or maybe the same afternoon. It was just ridiculous. Some of it was just ridiculous. And I was very hurt in that process. And I regretted choosing money over peace, choosing money over um, the job and the people that I loved and what seemed to align more with my values. I went on holiday to Africa, to Sierra Leone, while I was in that job. And that was a moment when I really connected again to, you know, uh, so much that I felt I wanted to do. I was really connected to what felt like the motherland, really and truly, my country. I felt like it was a homecoming to be in Africa. I'd never seen so many millions of people, Black people in one place. Like I'm from an island with 3,500 people, but before the volcano, we had 11,000, which is still like minute. It's probably like just a small town in smaller than a small town, maybe in the US. Um, so I went to Africa, had an incredible time. It has changed my life in so many different ways. I became really intertwined with what sustainability was, especially in the fashion sector. I I was able to draw that comparison between fast fashion and wastefulness and pollution, which is one of the biggest crises now that's affecting our world, is this throwaway fashion as well. I became up close. I saw real poverty right in front of me. And I saw great humility, great generosity, great kindness as well. And it was a beautiful, beautiful space, beautiful beautiful country, and also a country that had gone through so much. They had gone through civil war. And despite that, I find that the way people were kind to each other and kind to me was humbling, and it made me realize I wanted to live more of a purposeful life. I didn't want to be in fashion and this fickle way of being. Um, I just felt it was fickle. I felt it was like there was more purpose to myself, more of what I could contribute to life. And so I um I came back to the UK and I realized that working for this particular brand was not aligned to me. And so my values are clearly so important. I think our values need to be so much in line, especially when we're thinking about starting over, change, what really works for us. Because life is about changes. Life is about, those ups and downs. We go through so many different changes as women. We go through so many different changes, whether or not it's natural disasters, whether or not it's, educational changes, it's career pivots. We're changing all the time. And that is the purpose of being alive. that is the human experience of being alive. And so, and so, yeah, my values matter so much. Who we spend time with, what brands and products we endorse and work with, even is so important. What brands we buy, even, is so important. And so, basically, I came back and I gave up that job, resigned from that job, thank God Almighty, took another massive pay cut. My pay again went to rock bottom, so I had to start again building up pay. That made sense. And I was nearly 30. I was about 30 years old, and I had to go start again on increasing my salary. Having started really high, went rock bottom, came back up again to make about the same money I was on in law, probably a little bit more with like perks of doing something that I loved, being in a creative environment and all the intangibles that came with that, right? So I had people who were models in my, Brazilian dancers. I learned salsa and bachata and merengue, and, I was living such a beautiful life. And, and I was really into the art scene, so I would discover art and museums and exhibitions and all these things. And my friend Babs, who I loved and adored so very much, he would go out of his way to create and curate some of the most incredible experiences and exploration days in London. But yeah, so when I gave up this job, like wannabe wag, wife and girlfriends, footballer vibes, that just was not my vibe. Um, I am the girl that was riding her bicycle, like had vintage bicycles, and my friend Babs would actually find bikes. One of the coolest things that he did for me was to actually we were living on Tower Bridge Road, which is not far from Tower Bridge itself in London, if you've ever been to London. And he took me to this little tunnel under a bridge. In the tunnel with this Russian ex bodybuilder who was making and restoring bikes, vintage bikes. And he had the most beautiful setup in this cave inside of a bridge. And so that's the kind of friend I had. And that's the kind of vibe I loved. And this sort of creativity and exploration that just opens a whole different world that you can't even put money and value and so on too. So even though I didn't have any much money when I left my job that was paying well in London in fashion and merchandising and visuals, I ended up going to I ended up starting to use a camera for the first time in that job. Before that, I didn't even take selfies. I had no record of this time or my friends and the work we did or the vibes we had. It's just all in my memory. And that's why I think it's important to actually document it and share it and keep it as well, for different reasons. But I then through recommendation from Babs, I went to work for this organization called Buttertop.org, I think, if you look online. And so they make bags of people. That's how they started. And they would line it in mulberry leather. And this is when I started to work in sustainable fashion. And I would help them with the exhibitions. We would go to very interesting little spaces, either private schools or to private events, to like hedge fund offices, folks that had a lot of money, basically set up events, set up exhibitions for them to purchase and support this organization. And the company, Vaultup, also had a little non-profit in Africa, and they would make sure that the resources that they were able to generate went directly to the people who needed it most in Africa. So as you can see, this whole experience has shaped who I am today. And though I felt like I started from rock bottom several times and I took a few hard knocks, with having stubborn hopefulness and positivity, with having a few, sometimes only one really good person that bothered to get to know me and bothered to care enough about me, I was able to still rise again, stronger, better in, and sometimes maybe not even stronger or better, but having had way more experiences that would be able to plug into who I am today and that help me to get to the next level. So I think though it's hard to face and it's a rough and tough road to start all over again and to navigate, we do need to slow down a little bit, a lot. We need to take time to really recognize the people in our circle, to appreciate and spend time with them, to really value them. And sometimes just taking and bothering to care and to get to know one or even a handful of people. I have about, say, 80 people on my newsletter registered on Substack. And out of that, about 24 or 25 or so, like, seem to read my newsletters all the time. And for those people, I think that I need to spend a lot more time getting to know you and for you to get to know me. And this is the reason why I'm even sharing stories like this. Is you that's inspiring me. Some people have even paid me to write and to support this work. And no matter how big or how small that investment in me is, I really intend to um, make it worth our while and to see my gratitude in my doing. So, yeah, like, I just want to end this part of the story by saying again for us to remember some things. Like, even when we're building close relationships and networks, when we're even trying to grow things, whether or not it's our platforms or our businesses or whatever, sometimes you just need a little handful of people, but you got to be really bothered to care about them, to be really bothered to get to know them, and to show up for them in the same way that they show up for you. Um, some people, God bless them, even when you don't even realize and understand that you need to be showing up for them, are just so committed and such heaven sent that they'll still be showing up for you. But you still got to recognize that and realize the blessing in that. And that is how sometimes you can build a network without that awful feeling of feeling like you're just trying to get into a circle or make friends with people because of what you can get. Like for me, I don't want to be friends with somebody because of what they're gonna get or what I can get out of that. Like, that's never been my priority. It's always get to a person and really appreciate the value of who that person is. And I hope that people treat me in the same way. So yeah, this is something that we can use as a tip in life for just building good relationships, building good and strong networks, and also growing our relationships to our audiences. And the next thing I want to say is, you know, just one is good enough. That's important too. Is that, like, even in my whole community of people on my little community on my newsletter in Substack, um, I think I only have one or two people that one person even that I really enjoy speaking to. And they're, in terms of value that I get from all these different subsets that I sign up to, there's only a handful that I really love and I feel like I follow upon and I think even follow upon me. And so small numbers, like, we should embrace small numbers, man. I think small numbers is the future. I'm closing my circle in so many different ways to just focus on intimate groups. Um, really rethinking and shaping what I'm even doing, how I'm doing it, and who I'm working with, being so much more intentional. I think that in itself is healing and restoring and builds resilience. And true resilience, because true resilience, I believe too, has a lot to do with our well-being. And so that's the next thing I wanted to say, is how important it is to be able to navigate life's changes, starting all over again, or the messy middle of life, whatever it is that we must keep central the focus, the priority on our wellness, on our mental wellness, on our physical wellness, on our even, I'm coming from environment of the nonprofit environment and sector. It's super hard in climate and ocean work. There's many stories I could tell you right now, and I'm happy to read like work and how I move forward. I may even be starting over in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's just a natural transition of life, right? Maybe some of my dreams, maybe composting into something newer and more exciting, or maybe even more sustainable, more aligned to my well-being. And we have to be willing to break to appreciate that, to be able to attract that. And our well-being, I think, is a center of absolutely everything as we go forward. So I want you to think about, how are you focusing on prioritizing on your well-being? Because I think when we are well, when we are happier, then we're in a better position to build the trust, to build the relationships, to build the courage that we need to do the work that we need to move to the next level, or to even stay sustained in what we have accomplished and what we have prayed for, what we have hoped for and dreamed of. And so, with that, I just want to encourage you to stay creative. I am resetting my creative life as well, and you'll see some of my little scribbles. I'm not a great drawer or anything, but I love art. I love creativity, and I'm going to allow myself and give myself permission to create and to get better at it. And so, yeah, if you are on my newsletter via Substack, or you can look at my website, vitaway.com, then you will see fragments of how I'm doing that. And I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a whole hour story. And Michelle, I'm so happy you stopped in. And for those of you who are going to follow the live or see this on LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, I don't really share this on LinkedIn, but on my newsletter Substack, or on YouTube, please feel free to go ahead and like and share, comment. I appreciate you so much. Until next time.